2. U.S. Treasury Secretary Yellen followed U.S. Secretary of State Blinken to China. Some people think that when Yellen arrived in Beijing, a rainbow just appeared in the sky of Beijing, and it is judged that Sino-US relations will be rainy and sunny. Many people believe that with the visit of Blinken and Yellen to China, the door of Sino-US relations has been reopened and is entering a stable period. I am not optimistic about this. Sino-US relations are not only far from entering a stable period, but also continue to slide to a deeper valley. It can be said that Sino-US relations are not the worst, only worse. In my opinion, the Chinese people's understanding of the essence of America is still too kind and too naive. The United States has always been a country that can't afford to be unprofitable, and these politicians in the United States have never been kind people. After China closed the door to dialogue with the United States, why is the United States so anxious to reopen the door to China? Why does the United States, which has been launching biological warfare, technological warfare, trade war, financial warfare, and ship warfare against China, and challenging China's sovereignty and security in the Taiwan Strait and South China Sea, not give up on dialogue with China? Once China closes the door to dialogue, the United States will feel panic. I think it is because without communication channels, the United States cannot make demands on China, ask for benefits, or threaten China, and cannot achieve the goal of plundering, humiliating, containing, and breaking China from within. Therefore, when China closed the door to Sino-US dialogue, the United States became an ant on the hot pot. Not only did it admit that the Chinese balloon that was shot down did not collect intelligence, but it also anxiously disclosed Yellen to the outside world when China did not reach a consensus. News of the visit to China. However, the United States is eager to open the door to China, which does not mean that the United States has changed its strategy of containing China. Regarding Yellen's visit to China, Chinese people are more concerned about Yellen's request for China to purchase U.S. Treasury bonds and help the U.S. overcome its debt crisis. In fact, Yellen probably has a bigger purpose, which is to propose a long-term economic integration plan between China and the United States. Note that this is the long-term economic integration proposed by the United States for China. It is not a mutually beneficial and win-win cooperation as we understand it. It is a plan to prevent China's industrial upgrading, deeply bind the US dollar with unlimited quantitative easing and China's manufacturing industry, and make China forever a sweatshop in the United States. Of course, what I said here is very straightforward, and of course Yellen would not say that. The United States has always been very good at marketing and packaging. They can package wars and color revolutions as just actions to overthrow autocracy and promote democracy. They can use a bottle of laundry detergent as evidence of having weapons of mass destruction to launch a war against Iraq and hang them. President Saddam Hussein can carry out a color revolution in Ukraine in the name of democracy and freedom. He can destroy a good Ukraine, ruin his family, and make people miserable. He can falsely claim that China is engaged in genocide in Xinjiang with fabricated lies. Riots are depicted as the most beautiful scenery. However, neither of us dare nor are we good at lifting the robe of Jewish magic on the United States to see the lice and bugs crawling inside. We are only accustomed to believing and accepting the lies fabricated by the United States. In April 2021, when the United States launched a trade war and high-tech war against China, it was the most intense time, when Meng Wanzhou was under house arrest in Canada wearing electronic shackles. China and the United States issued the joint statement on addressing the climate crisis in Shanghai. In November of that year, during the Glasgow Climate Conference, China and the United States again issued the Glasgow Joint Declaration on Strengthening Climate Action in the 2020s. The core content of the statement and the joint declaration is that methane reduction, which we have not given special attention to, is to include methane reduction in the scope of commitments on the basis of carbon reduction, and methane reduction is a major issue related to the livelihood of the Chinese people. Because armor reduction is mainly aimed at rice-producing countries such as China, Southeast Asia, and South Asia, and countries where rice is the main diet, it is obvious that the United States is creating a new climate problem, and through this new climate problem, it is forcing China to accept their demands. The climate negotiations achieved the goal of controlling China's agriculture, controlling China's food, changing China's dietary structure, and guiding Chinese people's eating habits to the direction of the United States and Europe, where wheat is the staple food, making China dependent on the international agricultural and food markets controlled by the United States, and ultimately making China the purpose of keeping people's jobs firmly in the hands of Americans. What we fail to notice is that Kerry is Jewish and so is Yellen. These two Jews are evergreen trees in the American political arena. For decades, no matter how the US president changes, Kerry and Yellen have been important members of the government. Kerry used to be the Secretary of State of the United States, and now he is the special envoy of the president on climate issues. Yellen was the chairman of the Federal Reserve, which is the most prominent position to control Wall Street in the United States. Now she is the Secretary of the Treasury. She not only represents the interests of the United States, but also it represents the interests of the American Jewish Financial Consortium. Many people think that Yellen is a US official who is more friendly to China and cannot see her more complicated background. I think it is very dangerous to have this kind of understanding. Yellen's attitude towards China is not as simple as asking for the purchase of US Treasury bonds. Some people often laugh at the big chess theory that Chinese netizens say. In fact, it is the United States that really engages in big chess theory and grand strategy, and it lacks big chess theory and grand strategy. Precisely China. Why don't those American elites advocate or even fear decoupling with China? Because once China and the United States are decoupled, the United States will no longer be able to take advantage of the kindness and naivete of the Chinese people and some of the country-hating parties in China to advance the United States' plan to break China from the inside. Tied to the chariot of the United States, China cannot escape the fate of being enslaved and squeezed, and it is impossible for China to open many key industries and important fields to the United States. Once China closes the door to the United States will no longer be able to achieve their strategic goals. Once China closes the door to the United States, the American company Moderna will not be able to invest in China's pharmaceutical industry and produce vaccines exclusively for Chinese people, and will not be able to lead China into the trap of reducing carbon emissions through climate negotiations step by step. If Taiwan uses provocations and threats against China as a bargaining chip, it will not be able to obtain rare earths and key metals from China, and the high technology of the United States will be blocked by China, and it will be impossible to maintain the political hegemony ruling structure of the global pyramid, allowing Americans to live forever in their fabricated the so-called city on the hill and lighthouse country enjoy a superior life. Lincoln came and went. Then he said that he will say more things that the Chinese don't like, do more things that the Chinese don't like, and continue to contain China. Lincoln said so, and he did so. The Jew Yellen is here. In fact, Yellen has deeper political motives than Lincoln. This is a more vigilant American financier. She not only represents the United States, but also represents the United States Wall Street and the United States Jewish Capital Consortia. Behind the riots in France this time is the shadow of the United States. When the internet was cut off in France, American skeletons appeared on the beach. When US companies take over all state-owned assets in Ukraine for free, we will find that the US is really too ruthless to wipe out Ukraine so viciously and ruthlessly. Now, the Jew Yellen is here. She is not an American official who many Chinese people think is friendly to China. Whether she is friendly or not, she is a Jew. She is here for the interests of the United States. She is all for the United States to contain China. Strategy maker, promoter, executor, operator,